Good morning, everybody. It's a beautiful day, and we hope that you all will get a chance at some point to go out on that beautiful day and keep on going until, we're done with Saturday and Sunday and Monday and whatever. So I hope everybody has a really nice time coming along. Um, so we have an agenda that's coming, and we now have a sufficient number of people for quorum, and therefore we will proceed. And the first thing I think we're going to do is our Inspire Awards. Mr. Tim Ford, you ready there?
Yep, sure am.
Welcome aboard.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning, sir.
Up first, we have Ms. Kelsey Pierce as our nominee. There she is. She's up on the screen. Last January, Chris Norris, our longtime CAD operator and our only one, retired after decades of service. And we were faced with what to do about his position. It's a skilled position. And we were looking at either having to outsource his work. We had, in the meantime, had brought on some folks on our GIS services group. So at this point, it wasn't going to be a full-time position in any event. And Ms. Pierce, who happened to have some CAD background, volunteered to take on that additional work on top of everything else that she's doing. And it allowed us to be able to continue providing that service without having to outsource the work. And it allowed us to be able to provide our clients with the highest level of service, continue to, without any interruption of service. And for that, we are very thankful for Ms. Pierce's effort and dedication and her willingness to volunteer. So with that, Kelsey, I guess we come on up and get your award.
Here, here.
I think I give you the right one. No, it's on me. Hold that. You can hold that.
Okay.
Yeah, we made us out.
Okay. Oh, should I open it up?
Your preference. Oh, perfect.
Right. Next up, you got a bunch of guys from our midshore operations. Not too long. I don't have a date on that. I apologize. I don't remember the date, but
November 21st.
November the 21st. There was we observed a fire that was back on just on the other side of our property line in some woods back behind the landfill. And which fortunate it wasn't on the landfill, but it did threaten the landfill. It's a very difficult area to get back to. There's a wooded area on the western corner of the property. We called the fire department as we normally would, and they responded with brush trucks and a tanker. But then we also supported that response with our heavy equipment and our personnel. And we were able to help the fire department cut fire breaks. And again, this was off the property. To get the fire out. But then there needed to be continual observation after the fire department left, and we continued with a fire watch, make sure that the material didn't reignite, and then included an overnight fire watch. So put out any areas that reignited. So I want to thank all of our folks that are here, well, all of our awardees. I'll name them all up: Paul Towers, Logan Milby, Eric Fraze, Sarah Benny, Mike Wilson, Domingo Yanes, Michael Stivers, Dakota Towers, Gavin Miller, and Carrie Davis for their extraordinary service in this instance, helping out our community. Community is a big part of what we do, and this is another example of our supporting the community that we work in. So thank you, guys.
Well, great job.
one file left for me to pick up from.
Yeah.
Actually. Eric, Eric, give that to Eric. Michael Wilson. Gavin. Gary Davis. Yeah. My goodness, I have a big head. You can think back here. Can't see a shadow. Yeah, I know. Thank you.
Oh, there we go. Congratulations. Thank you all. So you all are welcome to stay if you want, but you can go as well. I know you have a long drive back. If you want to kick out of here, you're welcome to do that too. So,
We're gonna head out. Thank you all very much.
Thank
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Have a good day.
Go out there and get that nice air. Not the one that blew up, but yeah. Okay, I think we're ready to proceed a bit. And next thing is we have someone with us from RSM, Ms. Coleman, and she's going to talk a little bit about what she is doing and what she will be doing. So, Ms. Coleman, we've seen you before. It's a pleasure to see you again. So please go ahead and let us know.
Absolutely. Thank you again, and good morning, everyone. My name is Valerie Coleman, and I am a partner with RSM, along with my colleague, Philip King. We would like to go over what our plan is for the fiscal year 2023 audit. We do have a short presentation.
Can I stop you just a second? People might
Absolutely.
not know what RSM is.
Sure.
Because we
RSM
have
is
people all around the state, you know. So.
absolutely. That's a great point. So
Thank you.
RSM is a national public accounting and consulting firm. So we've been working on the MES audit since fiscal year 2019. We have several contracts within the state of Maryland as well, and we've served as your auditors.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I think we have sharing capabilities, and we'd like to just project a short presentation just to keep you up to date with where we are working on for fiscal year 2023. We had an opportunity to have an in-depth conversation and meeting with the audit committee a few weeks ago. So this is just an abbreviated presentation of our plan. Just to kind of keep you up to date, our audit timeline is for us to start in July 10th of 2023. We're going to do what is deemed our preliminary audit procedures, where we have some updates of our understanding of the entity, walkthroughs of the transaction cycles, and review processes with management. We've scheduled our year-end field work to commence August 7th. And we have a few details as it relates to that we've gone over with the audit committee as it relates to our timing. We plan to work with various subject matter experts as this organization utilizes specialists on their end when it comes to certain key estimates and liability accounts. So we in turn work with those specialists as well, and we'd like to let you know and inform you. We don't really anticipate any sort of significant changes in any sort of audit emphasis. This is a year that's a little bit quieter as it relates to the GASBs and any sort of implementation of major standards. We've informed management of what is to come and have, just given them a brief update as it relates to starting to look into these GASBs to ensure that there's not real, true implementation matters for the MES. Next slide. Just to give you an overview of the team, I am the audit partner, along with my colleague, Philip King. He is the audit senior manager. We're supported by an audit supervisor and an audit associate. As I noted before, we do utilize two specialists, one for OPEB and pension, and they are supported and they support me in the audit engagement. We also have an independent second partner, what is deemed to do and complete the engagement quality reviewer. That intention is to have someone completely not part of the engagement come in at the end, review our file to ensure that the quality is still maintained throughout the process. And we've noted that individual within that slide as well. Next slide. We want to let you know, as those charged with governance, that there is independence matters for us to be mindful of. The audit is completed under government accounting standards, so we have to follow Government Accountability Office independence rules. Everyone in the team is independent from the organization. We ensure of that. There's certain other qualities that we need to adhere to, such as a peer review of our firm, and we let management know, and we provide a letter to indicate that this has transpired along with the results. So we just wanted to let you know of this responsibility to maintain this independence and that it has been maintained throughout. Philip is going to go over a little bit of our audit strategy for you.
Sure, yes. So this is the first of two meetings. This is the front end before we begin our work, and then we'll obviously be reporting back at the end with the results back to the committee. We will be performing our startup planning in July, and so that will entail making sure we update our understanding of the entity, be aware of any changes, review the control processes as they relate to the financial statements, and how all the transactions are accumulated and get to the financial statements. From there, we start evaluating materiality to direct our testing, and also identify risk areas, in particular around how the financial statements get prepared, where the most significant estimations are involved. Those rise to the level where we believe they need more attention, audit attention directed, and we also review the internal controls. So those are the things we will be participating in July, and develop our audit plan to come back for August and perform our testing results. And of course, after that and the financial statements, we'll then report back to you with our results.
And again, we'll continue communicating with management. This is a two-way process as it relates to any sort of matters that transpire. So I do let you guys know that if there's any sort of concern, any areas that you'd like us to look into a little deeper, here's our contact information. We're more than happy to incorporate it in our audit plan, and wanted to give that open, that ability for you to do so as well. And that is really it for us.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone on the board that has any questions on this? All right, well, thank you so much, Mr. King and Ms. Coleman, and we'll be seeing you and hearing you for a while. So you all can sort of drop ahead now and, get out in the beautiful, whatever it is, out you're going to go outside, but have a good time.
Thank you again.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. All right, our next matter is the approval of minutes of April 27th, 2023. There has been sent to all of us on the board, and unless there's anything anyone wishes to say with regard to it, I would say that it will be approved unless there is anyone who disagrees. No one.
Judge, this is Marion. I just have some minor edits I'll pass along to Ms. Fuller, but I certainly approve of the minutes.
Okay. All right, fine. Thank you very much. Well, therefore, they'll be approved. That is the April 27, 2023. And now on to Dr. Glass, who is not out yet to his whatever you're going to do for the next couple of days.
Thank you, Judge Schmelkin.
Yes,
good morning,
sir.
everyone from our great neighbors to the north in Pennsylvania. Next slide. That'll come up later. First, during the period of this expense report, I had 4 purchases, all on the purchase card, totaling $309.55. All of these were expenses associated with travel to Atlanta to attend the Sustainability Award from SWANA. And Deputy Friketic had no expenses. Next slide. Lots of engagement over the last month. One thing to highlight is engagement with the College of Southern Maryland. We had a robust conversation, and that relationship continues to grow. As I mentioned last month, our engagement with the University of Maryland, Baltimore County continues to also thrive, where we had 34 applicants to our internship, fully a third of the applicants. And today I am with the Scientific Technical Advisory Committee of the Chesapeake Bay program, and they've already started discussing biochar and how that can be used in the total maximum daily load program that lowers the pollution diet for nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment into our bay, shared by 5 states in the District of Columbia. And then also a highlight is the National Governors Association, a invitation to serve on a panel for an infrastructure discussion that I attended last week. Some other pictures related to some other speaking engagements. I don't know whether it's the fact that I don't charge for keynotes or anything, but there were several in the last month, and hopefully that will slow down now that the summer will be starting. Next slide. Really, really excited, ecstatic, overjoyed to report this to the board. Did not know it was coming. Today, the Safety and Compliance Chief, Miss Erin Lanigan, and her Assistant Chief, Mrs. Amy Poet, are accepting the award on our behalf for a larger than 30% reduction in claims reported to IWIF over the calendar year of 2022 over 2021. So every onboarding for new hires, every visit to every site, the first thing we always lead with is safety as our first pillar, supporting our mission, vision, and values. And it seems to be working, and at least it did for that iteration. We almost always remember the 7 fatalities that have occurred in the history of MES and major injuries that have occurred as well. And there have been none in the last 3 years, and we hope to maintain that record moving forward. So cheers to everyone out there in operations, doing their job safely every day of the week with lots of heavy equipment and lots of risky environments. So cheers to the agency wide for that success.
Great.
Next slide.
Great.
On the afternoon of April 27th, right after the last board meeting, I had the pleasure to speak at the launch of the Montgomery County Durable Medical Equipment Collections location. So Treasurer Davis can be proud that his neighbors to the west finally got on board with collecting and sending durable medical equipment to the DME in Cheltenham. For those that may not remember, MES technicians collect the equipment and transport it to the 56,000 square foot facility in Cheltenham, where it is then sanitized, repaired, and stored for future distribution. A big shout out to Senator Ben Kramer and County Executive Mark Eldridge that headlined this event, and that all the staff at the Shady Grove Transfer Station that assisted in putting this on. To date, we have collected more than 20,000 pieces of durable medical equipment with a new retail value of more than $8 million, a weight of 600,000 pounds, and a savings of over 230,000 square feet of space in landfills throughout the state of Maryland. We are grateful and thankful to our partners at the Maryland State Department of Aging, Secretary Rokes, for entrusting MES with the operation of this program. And we are also thankful to former Secretary Rona Kramer for her vision and tenacity in launching the program that is so beneficial to all Marylanders and the environment. So if you have any folks that that need equipment and they are elderly, they can call the Department of Aging. I did not include this in my slide, but this equipment is free to Maryland citizens that are in need. So it's a great win-win-win situation. And I was very happy to be there with Managing Director Ford and all the other staff from MES to support this program. Next slide. We had a pickup. So we had 6 outreach and career fairs in the past month. We had 8 new hires with 6 departures. So a positive +2, and that's reflected in our HR report that will come up later. Again, we had 95 applications for our internship this program. Some of the young people have started onboarding, including one of the staff members that are assisting the executive office. We are really excited already in the first couple of weeks. A couple of staff, I don't know how many have felt this way, but the youthful energy coming into our building and assisting with our projects is already felt. All the interns will receive support this summer and hopefully a holistic experience. We start that next week with a lunch and learn where we'll go over the MES 101 and talk to the interns about everything that MES is and does. And even though they will be working on disparate projects throughout the agency, we hope to introduce them to each other in a peer-to-peer manner, led by Mrs. Leach, who has led the best practice of actually having new onboards engaged together so that some camaraderie is built amongst new employees. So we're really excited about it. This is the first really intentional year of it, although MES has had an internship program and it has accepted interns for a long time. This is really a large step up to having this great engagement and creating pipelines with various universities throughout the state and the region. Next slide. So along with keynotes and other opportunities, I'm proud to have graduated and they even gave us a diploma so I can add to my degree wall at home from the Johns Hopkins Leadership Fellows Program for the last 2 years, both virtually and in person. Hopkins puts leaders from around the country that are alumni or interested in the incredible large nonprofit corporation that Johns Hopkins University is. And I was honored to be added to the Environmental Health and Engineering Department Advisory Board. I told the chair that I didn't think that MES could afford Hopkins graduates at the starting point, but he said that there are masters and even doctoral students that just want to do good work. And I expressed that we have plenty of that for them. So hopefully this will also lead to greater engagement between JHU and MES. Next slide. On May 9th, and I was, again, with the keynote theme, I was honored to look back at some of the work I've done in the TMDL program at MDOT and that we continue to do at MES today. And so I was allowed to give the keynote and it was awesome. So I started with the review of the $100 million program at MDOT that lots of staff inside the state got squared away. And when I left the program, it was ahead of schedule with meeting compliance, and it remains 3.5 years later ahead of schedule with the new permit cycle. There were many MDOT staff there and that were involved in the process, but also Prince George's County and the Clean Water Partnership was present and reported on their attainment or approach to completing their consent decree in the stormwater realm. And we continue to do a lot of work in the new cycle of their permit that just started. And it was a great conference. And I got 8 continuing education credits for the day. And since I was the keynote, obviously MES did not have to pay for my presence. So anyway, that was a great regional conference at the University of Maryland. Next slide. And again, the National Governors Association with another client partner, Charles County, and also the chair of the Charles County Resilience Authority, Deborah Carpenter. We were invited by the National Governors Association to talk about the climate. I don't know why it's blanking on me. I probably have it written down. But we talked about all of the infrastructure opportunities and the functions of the new resilience authorities. that are Anne Arundel County, Annapolis has one, and Charles County was the first in the nation to form one. And it was a great interaction between governors, representatives from around the country on how MES functions, how it's unique in the country, and how we support efforts like the resilience authorities that are being born throughout the state. Next slide. And finally, today, I'm the keynote here. This is on a project that, on a technology, pyrolysis gasification that produces a carbon sequestering product that can also be used as a soil amendment. It's biochar by common name. So today I have a presentation where I talk about, connected to the TMDL program, when you make biochar from organic substrates, not to be too technical for everyone, you destroy nitrogen. So proteinaceous material that has nitrogen bonds in it are destroyed and you create nitrogen gas. That nitrogen keeps it from going into the bay. Also, biochar can be a product. Also, it is now being used to create carbon credits. So if you make biochar, you can get carbon emissions credits. We did a presentation to the board a year and a half ago or so. Mr. Al Razik presented how if we implemented a gasifier pyrolysis equipment at the Jessup and the Dorsey Run wastewater treatment plant facility, we could actually sequester carbon, and we would have a lighter emissions rating. So anyway, so I have a full presentation on this, and I'll be giving the keynote to discuss this and how I also have tried to move forward with pyrolysis gasification as a technology since my days at MDOT as well. Next slide. And I think this is where I'm going to be passing it over to Mr. Ford to present the outcome of the rodeo, of the Swan Rodeo. Mr. Ford.
But so the Mid-Atlantic chapter of the Solid Waste Association of North America held its annual equipment rodeo last Friday, May 19th, at the Cecil County landfill. And that's a gathering of 4 states, basically. And Midshore was well, or not Midshore, but MES was well represented at this equipment rodeo. We had 9 employees that were there, 6 from the Midshore group and 3 from our Harford County operations. They were George Carroll, Logan Milby, Earl Wood, Bruce Pepper, Domingo Tianes, Carrie Davis, Jody Byer, Ann Dixon, and Tammy Scarborough. We all did very well in the competition, but we had one employee who did exceptionally well, and that was Logan Milby, who placed first in the compactor competition. If you have to see these compactors, it's a dozer and I can't see that front loader up there, but the compactors are huge. It's a huge piece of equipment, and to watch these guys nimbly move these big pieces of machinery through a forest is pretty impressive, and it's timed. And Logan placed first in the compactor competition, second in the off-road truck, and that's another huge piece of articulated equipment, difficult to maneuver. If you try to drive an articulated truck, it doesn't quite go where you think you want it to go at times, so it takes a lot of skill. So with those placements, Logan will now qualify for the national competition that the Solid Waste Association of North America holds every year. And this year it is in Colorado. So we're looking forward to Logan participating and representing us well. As his second or third time he's gone to nationals. So congratulations to Logan and to all the competitors that participated in this event. It's really fun. Midshore landfill has hosted it several times. We may consider hosting it again in the future. So in any event, well worth the time. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. And Judge Smokin, that concludes the director's report.
Next year, I think maybe you ought to decide whether you're going to work one of these pieces of equipment or not, you know? A couple of days and you'd be doing it, well, at least where you're looking there. Okay, Glad everything worked well as usual. Just wonderful. All right, now we have some things from the agency activity reports of the managers, and let's see who we have here. Proposals, and these are opportunities. So we'll give the people of the minutes a chance to take a look at it. Any questions regarding these, ladies and gentlemen? Not hearing any, I think we will then go ahead and proceed. And Mr. Hammett, are we solvent?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's it. Next.
Good morning. I don't have the pictures, but I do have a pretty graph. And
Okay.
it present a very good result.
Great.
So far this year, we are doing 12.48% higher in labor sales over our fiscal year 2022. Of course, so we did receive the salary increases, but even considering those, we are doing very well in labor sales, which is our main benchmark for net earnings. Every group is doing higher than expected. As I mentioned before, the vacancy rate is much lower. Of course, MES, HR, and all the groups had made large efforts to fill the vacancies, and it is getting lower and lower. So looks like this projection of 12.48% will continue, and it may be even better by the end of the fiscal year. Next slide, please. This is presenting the budget versus actual for 10 months. As you can see in the first row, the labor sales, the projection for full year was 35 million. And now we are sitting at a full year estimate of $38,260,000, which is 2.4 million higher than the budgeted. A couple of things, when we budgeted, we usually look at the historical trends, and budgets are prepared as usually 4 to 5% raises. But since we matched the state raises in fiscal year 23, our salary increases were higher. So that's why there is a huge difference in labor sales. And also in the next slide, I'll show you that the labor hours has also increased, billable labor hours. So those two factors is contributing to much better than expected labor sales. Our overhead recovery is higher than actual, and overhead expenses are higher. Of course, you know, with the inflation and all that, it keeps them higher. So our overhead variance is 778,000 higher than what we had budgeted for it. So full year estimate is $3,162,000, which is one of the highest I recall. So all the factors are working in our favor. The billable labor sales, lower vacancies, controlling the overhead expense. So that's why we have much better full year overhead variance. Fringe recovery variance, usually we do not budget because a lot of times, you know, the tuition, the inspired hours or the training, the travel, all that stuff, you know, is unpredictable and is not a significant factor in our net earnings. However, we do expect the fringe variance to be coming to $187,000 this year. A lot of times, you know, we just barely break even, or it is even a negative. The working capital recovery is doing much better than expected because the working capital is 3% we charge because MES usually pay all the expenses in advance, salaries, capital expenses. Then we bill them. By the time we receive the payments, there is almost 2 months to 3 months lag in putting out our own capital. So we charge 3% working capital. It is much higher than projected because we had given the state reimbursable project a discount of the working capital because of the COVID. Now, the state budgets are prepared way ahead of time. And so when the COVID hit, we were approached and say, you know, what we can do to save the money to the state projects. So we did not charge them the working capital. Now for fiscal year 23, we started charging the working capital. So that's why it is much better than what we projected. Project variance is mainly because of the used oil. And then we have a small portion of contract management expense because MES does all kinds of work for all the state agencies. And sometimes those projects are largely capital projects with very little of recovery for MES. So in those cases, you know, rarely do we charge the contract management expense, and that is contributing that to the project variances also. So it's used oil and contract management expense. The other is the interest income. We lucked out because there was zero interest income projected. And now we are, the last investment we just made last week was at 5%. So we are doing very well in the interest income. And that reflects in the increase in net assets of 5.2 million. And at this point, I'll bring a couple of items. This is much higher than what we projected. This is the increase in net assets, which is net earnings, is much higher than we expected. I think this may be the highest ever. So I have two proposals that we will use that excess unexpected gains. Number one, our revenues are increasing every year. We need a contingency fund of 5% of the average of last 3 years' revenues. Since the revenues are increasing for last 3 years, and for this year, I'll show you in the next slide, you know, that we may reach the highest revenues ever. But because of that, we're gonna increase the contingency fund. And we will use out of this $5.2 million, $250,000 to increase the contingency fund to keep up with the inflation and to keep up with the revenues. So that's the $250,000 will be used for that. Another item, if you remember last year, I wanted to put $500,000 into retirees' health insurance. Unfortunately, I did not get the proper approvals from the auditors, from our actuarial company, and I wanted to book the approval, but I was not allowed by the auditors. They say, you know, unless you have a firm commitment or you make the contribution, you cannot withhold or approve $500,000. So I'm going to use that $500,000 since we have a time. I already talked to our auditors, RSM. I have talked to our actuarial company, Lewis and Alice, and I propose that we will put $500,000 to the retirees' health insurance fund because the return on it is fluctuating, and in the last couple of weeks, again, it went down. So since we have this extraordinary gain, we're gonna put $500,000 to retirees' health insurance to stabilize it. That will help us in lowering the contributions in the next few years, just in case, you know, if we do not have the expected return. So that is how the $250,000, $500,000 out of 5.2 million will be used for those purposes.
So I just like to say that Mr. Patel's statements are suggestions that obviously he'll have to interact with the treasurer. Some of these come from Secretary Neal. I believe that some of these ideas come from conversations with you. So just so the board knows that neither the managing director for finance nor the executive director are telling you, but we are proposing these as suggestions for how to deal with this revenue.
Thank you. So I'll wait for the direction on that, you know, before we go ahead and make that contribution. So, you know, we just need to make sure that we make the actual physical contribution. It is okay with the board. before June 30th. And next page. All right, so here we have fiscal year 23 versus fiscal year 22 as of April each year. I'm just gonna highlight a couple of items here. The billable hours, as you can see that it is a higher, 45,000 higher than the last year, which is 4.93%. And that is the billable hours. So that is a very significant increase in billable hours. Our overhead recovery is up, overhead expenses up. So overhead variance as of last year is 36.53% higher than the last year. The fringe variance, even though it's a smaller amount, is still up 142%. Working capital recovery is 43.44%. Other, which is mainly the interest income, is up 350%. So the increase in net assets is up 55.75%. And as I said that, the net earnings is significantly higher also. So considering all that, our financial position is very good. If you look at the revenue, so far we are 155 million versus 124 million last year. If we do the straight line projection, then we may get to the 190 million. But of course, there are capital projects, which is not a straight line projection, but revenues will be much higher than the last year also. And there's one last thing that it is, any questions on this so far?
I just wanted to comment on the two very prudent moves that you want to make with some of our reserves. And I discussed it thoroughly with our finance team, and I would urge the board to support those as year-end adjustments because I think it will serve the organization well.
Good idea.
And while I have the floor, is there anything in May or June that will materially affect these numbers, or you think they'll run pretty true?
I think it will run. Our estimate is very close. It cannot be 100%. The approvals take place in June, but most of those are billable, so it will have the approved revenues also. So I think we will hold this 5.2 million is a very good estimate as of June 3rd.
That would be the only reason not to do some of the reserve transfers is if you had a reverse in fortunes in the last 2 months of the fiscal year. It looks like we're in good shape. So barring anything catastrophic that happens in May or June, I think we should do the things that you recommend.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr.
And one last thing, we don't have a slide for it, but all the board of directors, because of your question, Mr. Neal, on the over 90 days accounts, we gave the details to all the board of directors for those over 90 days. At that time, that was about 2 weeks ago when we sent it to you. The over 90 days total was $1,552,000. Out of those $1,552,000, we collected $723,000, almost 50%. So now that old over 90 days balance is $828,000. Of course, we do millions of dollars in billing, about 12-15 million a month. So that new 90 days over came up. So if you look in the balance sheet, you still have that 1.2 million over 120 days, but those are rolling balances. And as I shown in the spreadsheet that we sent to everyone, is majority, almost 95% is the government, local government, and mainly state agency, which take time in processing. But it is a rolling accounts past due balances, and we are keeping up with it. As you see that in just 2 weeks, we collected almost 50% of those 90 days.
Well done.
Thank you.
Or so. All right. Any other questions for this gentleman?
Judge, I do have a question of Mr. Patel. This is Marion. On the preliminary financial data, Mr. Patel, on page 1, which was the fiscal year 23 key operating results. This is, and again, this is on the preliminary package that was sent to the board, so it doesn't relate to this particular screen. There was a reference midway after, in the category of revenues, you have revenues set forth, total revenues, and then there's another bolded line for GCL, which indicates that there are decreases of 439,000 as well as almost 5 million, 5.2. So I didn't know what the GCL related to. I don't know if you have that preliminary package that was sent to the board.
Yes, ma'am. I do have it in front of me, and I'll explain. The GCL is the general construction loans, which are the capital projects. Those are approved by the legislature, and those are funded by the state for state facilities. Majority of them are the water wastewater enhancement or improvement plan. Also, there is a ECI steam conversion plant. So those are the capital projects. Because of these shortages and also the lack of contractors that were available to do certain works, that the GCL projects were delayed. The GCL funding is good for 7 years. So we will spend that, so it may be a little timing difference right now, but eventually, we spend most of the GCL funding that is available to MES, and it is accelerating. The contracts and all the expenditures are accelerating. So that's why, because it's a capital project, it requires permitting, planning, and of course, supply shortage and lack of available contractors at a reasonable prices. It is delayed a little bit, but it will be caught up. So that's why it's significantly lower than the last year.
Thank
And,
you, that helps.
Yeah. And so before this, we were not including this GCL as our regular revenues because it was state approved, state funded projects, and it was just a strictly pass through. MES was managing those projects, and they were doing the specifications, bidding, they were monitoring the contractors, but it was a pass through. That's why it's shown as separate.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for, all right. We've gone through that. Thank you very much, Mr. Patel, as always. Going up. That's good. Keep on going. We've got new people coming in. It's just great. All right. Thank you. And now we have Mr. or I should say Secretary Robert Neal. And sir, if you could give us a present summary of the recent meeting of the Audit Committee, that would be helpful. And if you can do that at the moment, I hope you are able to do that. Ms. Heller is not right here at the moment. So you are, of course, someone who is part of that unit of the report. So if you can let us know what is going on, I think that would be appropriate, if you can.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We heard from RSM this morning. They gave a brief presentation at the beginning of the meeting, so I'll not repeat that. But we met last Thursday, and as the audit committee, and the slide before you shows some of the work of our internal auditor. And I believe Treasurer Davis raised some issues about MBE participation at one of our previous meetings, and the internal auditor went to work on this. And it's sort of good news and bad news. The good news is that the flaws that she found
were low in materiality, but they were basically ineffective, and largely because we don't have documented processes, and we don't have oversight controls. And so this identified a weakness, and management is going to turn to and create these controls and these processes so that we do a better job on small business and minority business, particularly when you have to do a waiver, which you're bypassing written law. So it's important. The other audit, which I think is important, is the segregation of duties review. That's in progress, being done by our internal auditor. And this is so that you have your duties separated so that one person can't manipulate the systems that we have, that there's always some peer review, and that's underway. And then there was also the review of the Eastern Shore Forest Products time and material contract, which is in the works. And then there's also a billable activity project where our internal auditor is actually billing our customers for her compliance work, which I think is very appropriate. She also told us that May was internal audit month. I didn't know that, and that's good to know. So happy internal audit month to all those internal auditors that are out there, keeping everybody's feet to the fire. And then there's going to be a fiscal 25-26 risk assessment starting this fall. And risk assessments are very important in organizations like ours. You have to look at our risk to revenue, whether we lose customers, what happens, and also the external forces that play against us. And it's good to evaluate what we would do in certain situations where something bad happened to us, and whether we would be resilient enough to recover. So most quality organizations spend a lot of time on enterprise risk management and risk assessment. And so we're going to begin that process this fall under the jurisdiction of the audit committee. That completes our report. I'll be happy to answer any questions if anyone has one.
Any questions? Any questions?
It was there in there, right?
I was just working off the slides. Go ahead. No, please.
So I'll touch some points on the external auditors. RSM work on the MES Reform Act audit. The MES is required to have this audit of all expenses, the policies and procedures according to the MES Reform Act. That findings are supposed to be given to board of directors only. There's no requirement, to go at any higher level or any higher authorities than that. So RSM did the audit based on the fiscal year 22 expenditures. We, on the average, MES processes 1,000 expense reports, 25,000 supplier invoices, over 2 million in credit card transactions. On a sample basis, RSM will test those expenses, whether it met all the policies and procedures, whether all the documentation was proper, and it was all authorized, and it was for valid business purposes. So based on that sample testing, they determined and they discovered there were 2 transactions that were outside the policy. There was no finding of any unauthorized expenses or invalid expenses. Both of those were not submitted within 30 days. MES policy is that those expenses are to be submitted in 30 days. Many times the employees put their own money out there, and this total out of all the millions of dollars in expenses, the total was two findings of $617.89. And they were both, as I said, valid expenses, only it was not submitted within 30 days. So just want to bring it to your attention.
All right. Anything else?
No, that's it for.
Mr. Secretary, anything else, sir?
No, sir.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. Next, we have the Human Resources Report.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning.
So it's happy to report that the vacancy percent is down from last week's board of 3.49%, and it is now at 3.23%. So we continue to make great progress in our downward trend in that area. And I guess just one other item that Dr. Glass already spoke to is that our agency's intern program is well underway. We have 12 interns. We have 6 already onboarded and active within the groups, and we have 6 more that have higher dates from May 31st to mid-June. So we're excited about that. That's a wrap unless you have any questions.
That's vacancy rate.
All right. Thank you. Anything else you have for her? No? All right. Next matter that is coming is the procurement of Ms. Hattie Crosby. And we have 9 of them, I think, at this point. And one question is there anyone who has to recuse ourselves with this?
This is Marion. I'll have to abstain or recuse myself from items 1 and 6.
1 and 6. All right. And is there anyone else who is not able to be within our entire 5-year or 5-person? Anyone else?
Because there will not be 5 votes available to approve items 1 and 6, I'd recommend that those 2 items be deferred.
All right. I think we have to do that at the moment. There may be a change in the next, before we're finished, or otherwise with regard to those things, and those are matters 1 and 6. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
All right. So for now, it is is being held, and at the appropriate time, we will take another look on those 2, 1 and 6. I think everything else, we do have a quorum that is appropriate to make or break whatever they want to do. But at any event, it is going to be enough to hit a quorum. So, Ms. Crosby, you have got that under
Yes.
advisement, correct?
Yes. So we're
Yes.
starting with item 2.
All right. So if you would then proceed, starting with number 2 of the
Yes.
procurement.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Item 2 is for the Elk Neck State Park wastewater treatment plant. This is for the environmental wastewater group. The contractor that's been awarded is Allen Myers Inc. The low bidder requested a waiver on this project, and the waiver was denied. The goal on the contract is 18.03%. I also want to let the board know that the contractor, the low bidder, also filed an appeal of MES denial of the waiver in the circuit court.
That's correct.
All right. Anybody have any questions? Anybody on the board have any questions on this matter? If not, is there a motion to approve? All right. And for a second, I'll go with second. Anyone else have anything to ask with regard to this? If not, all those in favor, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone in, not? All right, therefore, we have a quorum and the quorum has been voted, and we are now ready to go to the next matter, if you would.
Yes. Item 3 is also for the wastewater group. This is for Dorsey wastewater treatment plant upgrade. The awarded contractors, Rommel, Kepler, and Call LLP. The goal on the contract is 29%. The total amount of the contract is $257,248.48.
All right, for this matter, any questions?
I move approval, Mr. Chairman.
All right, anybody
I'll
have a
second.
second? Any matter otherwise? All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Any nay? I hear none, so we will go to the next matter. Thank you.
Item 4 for the wastewater treatment group. This is for the City of Cambridge wastewater treatment plant. The awarded contractors WK Marion Inc. And the amount of the contract, the amount of the original contract was $58,779. This is a renewal of the contract for option year 1 in the amount of $102,543.20. I'm sorry, this is the second renewal. That brings the total contract amount to $241,664.20. And there's no MBE participation for this contract.
All right, any questions on this matter? Hearing none, is there any motion?
I'll move approval.
Motion, and
Second.
it has also been seconded. Any other matters before we vote? If not, then if you are in approval, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any objections? I hear none, therefore this has been approved. Next matter, please.
Okay, item 5 is for the information technology group. This is the purchase of some servers from Dell Marketing Limited Partnership. The amount is $338,090.44. This is based off a intergovernmental contract. This is a statewide contract from the manufacturer.
All right, anyone on this matter? Hearing none, is there a motion for this matter? All right, any second? I'll second it. Second. Any other matter? Anybody have any questions on this? If not, and raise your hand if you're saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we now have this matter also approved. Thank you very much, and move on to the next matter.
Next is item 7.
Remember that number 6 has been, but
This is
number 6 is not presently on the table, so we're on 7. Okay, thank you.
This is for the Back River wastewater treatment plant. These are clarifiers 2 and 7 rehabilitation. The contractor is GMH and Associates of America. The original award was $2,045,344. This is a change order number 7 in the amount of $66,084.45. I'm sorry, the amount of this change order is only $37,705.50. And now the total contract for this project is $2,489,948.41. The goal on the contract is 15%. The contract is presently achieving 12.19%.
All right. Any matters, any questions on this from the board? All right, is there a motion? I'll move for it. Anyone for second?
I'll second.
Second, we hear second. Any other questions, any matters that to be approved other than this? All right. If you're going to be with this, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
All right. And there is no nay, therefore the matter is approved. Thank you very much. Next matter.
Okay, item 8 is for our environmental operations group. The project is the Prince George's County Material Recycling Facility. This is to supply general labor service at Prince George's County. The contractor is CMT Service. This is a change order to that contract, exercising the 4th option year, which is $2,319,826.07. The total revised contract for this project is $9,701,423.65. The goal on the contract is 25%. The contractor is achieving 18.59%. There was an issue with the subcontractor supplying the laborers or the temp laborers. The contractor is under a corrective action plan, and they are currently hiring another MBE to this contract.
All right. Is there any reason not to go ahead with this matter at the
I can
moment?
add on, CMT is a MDOT certified
Yes,
firm.
CMT is
They can
also,
self-qualify for 12, and a woman-owned business, and they can self-qualify for 12.5%. And since this slide was prepared, they have contracted with a company called Telesis, and that was submitted to Tim Barker.
yes, it's been approved.
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Second? Second is on. Are there any other matters, any questions from the board before voting? All right, if not, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? I hear none, there is opposed, and therefore we go to, I think, your last one. Is that correct, Mr. Crosby?
Okay, this is for the Environmental Dredging and Restoration Group. This is a pre-solicitation award request. The advertisement date is to be May or June of 2023. The aggregated total amount is 450,000 right now. Okay, 450,000 with an MBE goal of 29%.
All right. On this matter, any questions from the board? All right, do we have a motion on it?
So moved.
All right, I'll second it. Any of those have any questions before we vote? If not, please raise your hand if you say aye.
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 All right, and there are no others, therefore it is approved, and I think that sort of wraps it up for the day. Is that right, Ms. Crosby?
The notifications.
All right. We have this one now. Oh, there we go, on the procurements. Okay. Here we have the procurements, which are purchased and contracted, et cetera. And these do not need to be motioned at the time, but if you have any questions, of course, I have a number of them. Great. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, and then we're going to move on. And I think we're with our Coleman Sean Esquire, who is our person who makes us do the right and the wrong. Always right, of course. So let's.
I don't do the right. I try to get away when you do the wrong.
I see. Okay. All right.
So before you are the revised bylaws. I did receive some comments from board members. So you should have gotten in your package a red line version of the draft bylaws that we discussed last week or last month. I don't consider the changes to be significant. We cleaned up some things where it was a little vague. The one thing was that we did clarify in section 501 about when the annual meeting would occur, which is it would be the first regular meeting of the fiscal year. Just clarifying in the event that there should have to be an ad hoc meeting earlier in that month. But those are really the rest of the changes were just some minor cleanups.
All right, are there any matters that anyone from the board wishes to address with regard to this matter? We've all seen it, and if there's no other matter on it, is there a motion to approve?
Mary.
All right. Second?
Second. I'll second it.
Second is up there. Anyone else? Any questions with regard to this? If not, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, and nobody is saying no, so therefore we are approved on this particular matter. Thank you very much. It was a very difficult matter to put together. I think it's been done in a terrific way, and so for everybody here. So we will be using it, and thank you very, very much for all who have helped with this.
I'll take care of sending out a clean version to the board members. And as noted in the bylaws themselves, they do not take effect until July 1st of this year.
Right. But it has been approved.
Yes.
And it will stay on that level. All right. Pardon me. Sean, anything else on this matter for you?
No, I have nothing else for the board today.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. And let's see what we have next. We have the group updates, managing directors. So, Ms. Slatnick.
Thank you. The TES presentation for this month. TES has a unique collection of projects. We have our stormwater and all those kind of things, our bread and butter, but we also have some unique projects. So I like to bring those to the board just because they are interesting. So for this month, I'm going to talk about the Maryland Roadside Historical Markers Program. In 2022, the Cultural Resources Division of the Secretary's Office of MDOT took the lead on administering the state's Roadside Historical Markers Program. And under contract with TSO, two of our MES archaeology staff, Erin Leventhal and Jessica Munn, support this program. And they've made several updates to the program. They've reviewed applications, and they've worked with the people in the communities who have proposed new markers. So a little background on the program for those who aren't aware. I'm sure everyone's seen these signs on the side of the road. Back in 1933, the Maryland State Roads Commission began a statewide marker program with support from the Maryland Historical Society. The beginning of the program actually coincided with the increased availability of cars and the expanding roadway system, as well as George Washington's birthday in 1932. In 1985, the program was transferred to the Maryland Historical Trust with support from State Highway Administration. And today, the Secretary's Office at MDOT administers the program in partnership with the Maryland Historical Trust. And then SHA funds, installs, and maintains the markers. Historical markers are a common sight across the state. There are about 780 of them currently in the program. They represent a broad range of people, places, and events related to Maryland's history, including Harriet Tubman, Claire Barton, different Native American settlements, and also sites that are associated with the Revolutionary and Civil War. When the Secretary's Office took the lead on the historical marker program, one of the first priorities was to develop a new simplified website, and MES staff drafted the text for the website. We then coordinated development of the site, and in the future, we're going to work on a GIS map that'll be added to the site so visitors can easily search for different markers. Next. MES staff also worked to streamline the application process for the markers. Right now, the new application is up on the website and it's a lot easier. You can fill it out and submit right on the website. Next. And then MES staff also helped to review a backlog of about 30 applications that were already awaiting review for a marker. They were submitted over the last few years by different individuals, communities, organizations. And our role in this includes assessing if a proposed marker has state significance and conducting the historical research to confirm the accuracy of the marker. Next. And then for any applications that meet the program requirements, the MES staff works with the applicants to update the final marker text. Once the application has gone through all the final reviews, we share the marker text with SHA to have the sign fabricated. And then we do help coordinate with the applicant to schedule an unveiling event for the new marker. And these are pictures from a recent new marker that was installed for a historic African-American community in College Park in the community of Lakeland. And you can see from the pictures, the turnout was, the turnout showed that people are interested in these types of programs and that they do appreciate having, you know, that very specific acknowledgement of their history of their area.
Who has the final approval authority?
The Department of Transportation Secretary's Office, the Chief Cultural Resources Officer.
Okay, so the historic trust is not involved in the decision making.
They're part of the review, but they don't have the final decision.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Ms. Dolinar.
Thank you. I have a brief update this month, but it's an important project. MES is under contract with Garrett County to complete dredging of the Deep Creek Lake Arrowhead Cove dredging project. It'll comprise up to 15,000 cubic yards of dredge material from the southern portion of the lake. So far, we've completed an alternatives analysis, which was the process where we evaluated 10 different coves and ranked them based on which would be the most desirable cove to dredge. And we also completed the permitting and the design. And we're currently in the procurement process, and competitive sealed bids are due tomorrow. So it's good timing. We will also provide the construction management oversight for this project. We've procured an AE services to help us with that.
Where are you going to put the dredge spoils?
We'll get to that. So the project's estimated cost is $1.4 million. Garrett County received funding from grants, $2.2 million from the State Lakes Protection and Restoration Fund, and also funding from the Maryland State Capital funding. So we have a budget of 1.4. We've estimated that we could get 15,000 cubic yards, hopefully, with that 1.4 for the construction project. Some of that other money went towards the construction oversight and design. So we'll go to your question on the next slide. So the actual dredging is expected to begin in the fall during the lake drawdown timeframe, and it'll be concluding in the beginning of the year, where the material is going to be mechanically dredged. It's going to be placed and stockpiled at an adjacent staging area, and then passive dewatering back into the lake. And then once that material passes the paint filters test, the contractor is going to transport it to the Garrett County landfill, and it'll be used as daily cover for the landfill. A little bit of innovative reuse. So we're looking for big bids tomorrow. That's all I have. There's questions.
Is there going to be more? You've identified coves. Obviously, this was the winning contestant. Will there be an ongoing dredge program out there?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, you know, we're doing the best we can with the available funding.
Yeah. Well, if this one turns out nice, you'll probably have some other
Hope so.
applicants.
Hope so. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And again, now we have another person, Al Rastick, our senior engineer, and Mr. Rastick.
This month's for water wastewater, as the chair said, this month's water wastewater presentation is going to be given by Al Razik. I just wanted to give a couple of notes about Al. Al is actually officially titled a senior engineer, but he's really Mr. Biosolids here at MES. He's responsible for not only the MES Biosolids program and overseeing it, but also for the DC Water and the WSSC Biosolids program. He's one of the heroes of our campaign at the Back River treatment plant. When we came to Back River, they had a serious biosolids accumulation problem. Al was instrumental in addressing that, and he's finishing up a project now. He has over 30 years of experience, and he'll actually be retiring at the end of the year. So get a chance to say, Al, what a great career and what a great contribution to MES.
I do think senior engineer is more dignified than Mr. Bios.
You think so? Take it away, Al. All things biosolids.
Good morning. Thanks, Tim, for the kind words. As Tim mentioned, I manage the biosolids here at MES along with Heather Fritz of my group. We help site for inspectors that work for the WSCC, the DC water projects, which I'm not going to talk about today. Before I start, talk about how we manage our biosolids. I want to mention two terms you'll hear throughout my discussion. When I mention the term sludge, all wastewater plants, the main purpose of a wastewater plant is to move solids and organic matter. So the solids that are removed from a wastewater plant is called sludge. It's not treated at that point, but once you treat it, the EPA standards for be able to beneficially reuse it or recycle it, that's what we call it biosolids. It was an industry term that was coined back in 1990s, early 1990s to really to remove some of the negative connotations with the word sludge. Part. So what do we do with our material now? Well, we have over 70 wastewater plants that are either operated by MES or managed by MES, where we have significant activity where we manage their solids material that comes out of their plants. In addition to that, there are 18 facilities that do not operate, but bring their sludges to us for processing and treatment. And there's about over 12 million gallons a year is brought to us, and usually it's holding tank waste or sludges, some landfill leachates. And the reason we take those is, especially in some places, especially in Central Maryland area, there's no other outlet for them to bring their sludges for these smaller plants. So we operate on a regional facility mode of operation. Basically, for these smaller, some of these plants, a lot of them are smaller, mostly very small. We don't upgrade them to treat the biosolids, to sludge the biosolids. We basically have them truck their waste to us, not only the outside plants, but our plants as well. And then what we do, we treat them at 3 regional facilities, one at MCI, one at the Freedom District plant, and one at our MCI plant in Hagerstown, MCI wastewater plant. And that model works very well for us because we have less management headaches and duties. Instead of trying to manage 70 plants intensely, we only have 3 we have to worry about. I should mention that those plants that bring stuff to us in a lot of them in the Central Maryland area, Anne Arundel, Howard, Charles counties, PG, have no other place to go, with their material, so they bring it to us. They actually call us and ask us to meet some of their material over at our Dorsey and our Freedom. That's worked well as well. We, in general, our program runs pretty well. We have almost no compliance issues, very little, operational issues. We've been working with a contractor for the past 25, 30 years to manufacture our material. The same one, mostly our recycled systems out of Virginia. We produced in calendar 2022, we produced 2,561 dry tons per year. And in the wastewater world, that's actually a very small amount. But what makes our program unique is we have so many facilities. And we do a lot of operation support for our guys in the field. They call every day and ask questions about, permits. We handle the permitting, the regulatory reporting, any interfaces with MDE, monitoring, everything having to do with solids and biosolids. We handle that. Heather and myself handle that. So what happens to that material? Well, 49%, actually 50% of that material gets beneficially reused, gets recycled onto farmland, mostly in Virginia. We have two smaller plants that do land apply in Maryland, our Mount St. Mary's wastewater plant and our Branchville plant in Garrett County. We have a small portion of it is water treatment plant sludges from Frostburg, they're 1.1%. About 30% of our material is landfill, and that's mostly from two plants. Our largest facility, which is the Cambridge plant, which is a design 8 million gallons per day design, and La Plata, which we don't operate, but we manage their material. And then 19% net red shade in the pie chart you see is those smaller plants that I mentioned earlier that transport their sludges to us. So if you look at us compared to the rest of the country, they did a study back in 2018. 53% of the biosolids in this country are land applied to soils in one way or another. And we're doing about 50%. So we're kind of following the national trends when it comes to biosolid. And again, the program works pretty well. We always are able to get the material out. In fact, all the time I've been here, we've never once not, had to worry about getting our stuff out of the plant. Next slide, please. So these are some pictures of the actual operations. And the far left corner picture, you see a tanker truck. That's from bringing sludge from one of these outside plants. We don't operate that in the town of Weedsboro. They bring 1.7 million gallons a year, roughly, biosolids to us. They take it to our MCI plant. That truck comes in, it's a 6,000 gallon tanker. It all flows into a storage tank with liquid sludge. And then what happens is on all of those three regional facilities, once we get them, we do something we call dewatering. So the picture next to it, to the right of it, is a belt filter press that dewaters the material so we can reduce the volume of sludge that goes out. At this point, it's still sludge, hasn't been treated. That press, that's from our Dorsey Run plant. That press is 37 years old. We're in the process of replacing it with centrifuges. That and our ECI plant are very old equipment. We're in the process of construction projects where we're replacing those belt presses. They're sorely needed replacements. The middle picture, we see those piles in the building. That's from our MCI plant. When we take this dewatered sludge, we have lots of lime to it that kills the pathogens. Because the EPA regs require you to do that. And then it's stored in a building until our land application contractor will pick it up. And that's the building that you see. It's kind of a covered pole barn type building. And then the far right, you see actual land application site in Virginia. It's not a high-tech process. It's something farmers do every day when they apply manure. And we follow the same principles. We use nutrient management plans, we make sure that we adhere to weather restrictions, all the regulations, a lot of regulations about biosolids and use in our profession, so that we have to follow them. You can't see it, there's a little way in the back of the picture, there's a truck, a tractor trailer, 18-wheeler that's unloading some biosolids from a plant, probably ours. That one might be from ours, our plant. But that happens every day, thousands of tons every week that are land applied, especially in Virginia. But that's what we do basically. And we have, again, the program works well. We have storage at our plant, so we have to worry about the weather. The weather's bad, we can store it for a while. Wait out any inclement weather periods. So it's a really good, program. We have good prices. Up until recently, we had good prices. Those have increased because of the trucking situation. They've had a hard time finding truck drivers, and the prices will affect for a Dorsey plant. Prices almost doubled since the last time. So that's what we do right now. Okay, next slide, please. So that's not to say that everything is working well in the future. We're going to work well in the future. There's an issue called PFAS, polyfluorinated fuel compounds. That's what PFAS stands for. And what are they? Well, they're the class of 9,000 compounds using in this country for about 80 years. And they're used in a whole bunch of variety of consumer products like Teflon pans, nonstick pans, firefighting foam. Your popcorn bags that are lined with PFAS compounds that make them not stick, because they have properties they last a long time and it makes things not stick to them. Like, I mean, pizza boxes, you're gonna put your pizza on, it's grease resistant, and pizza doesn't stick to the little liner in the box that they give you. So, but cosmetics, believe it or not, it's in lipstick, it's in dental floss, things that you would never guess that there were. So why are we so concerned about PFAS? Well, they don't break down easily. So there's this nickname that they're giving them forever chemicals. They don't break down biologically. They just stay in the environment for long periods of time. There's also some suspected health problems with them. There's suspected carcinogens. They cause endocrine disruptive problems, elevated cholesterol levels, decreased vaccine response in children, and so on. And it's estimated that 97% of the American public, or people in the Western world, have PFAS levels in their blood. So probably all of us in this room probably have some PFAS in our bloodstream, because we've been exposed to these chemicals for the past 80 years. And so why are we so worried about this? Well, if you're like me, you go to these biosalts conferences, all you hear about is PFAS, because there are a lot of bad public perceptions about biosolids to begin with. And so when they hear that there's PFAS in biosolids, they want to ban land exploitation. So it's a problem for water utilities and for solid waste operations too, because, you know, you throw your stuff away in the landfill. You know, some of this stuff is, for example, carpet, stain resistant furniture and carpets thrown away in the landfills. They use PFAS for that. Scotch Guard is a PFAS product. So, you know, that leaches into the landfill leachate and henceforth, that's a problem for them. Also, maybe some conflicts due to their pesticides. So it's a problem. And going to the next slide, the last slide. So this problem really reached a critical level in the state of Maine, because there was a dairy farmer there who had pulp and paper sludges land applied to his farm, and his milk and his cow were contaminated with these substances. And then there were some other farms as well in Maine. So Maine was the first state in the country to ban biosolids land application, which caused a problem because not only did they ban land application, but they also had a problem disposing of their landfills. There are a lot of landfills in Maine. So right now they're trucking their sludge over to Canada, believe it or not, New Brunswick. Yes, that's what's happening. They're trucking it there. They're having problems with that. The prices have doubled and tripled. Some, and as you can see, one of them, the new story I have there is Prices Building in Kennebunk County, wastewater plants, and they basically wait out every week to see if their sludge is going to be able to be removed from the plant. They've reached a crisis situation there in Maine because it's been banned. And a lot of the folks here in the Mid-Atlantic region are worried about this, that's going to happen here in Maryland and Virginia and Pennsylvania. There are different approaches to that. There was a total ban of it in Maine, I just mentioned. In Michigan, they have a somewhat nuanced strategy, an interim strategy that you have to test your biosolids, and between certain levels, land lower than a certain level, you can land apply between certain levels of PFAS concentrations in biosolids. You land apply at a lower rate. If it's a very high concentration, you can't land apply. So they've kind of taken that strategy to do it. There are no federal regulations yet. I should mention that. The federal government's working on a risk management right now for PFAS. They've actually proposed regulations for drinking water. Some of you probably have heard about it in the news for PFAS. The two compounds you saw in the previous slide, PFO and PFAS, those two compounds, they actually have stopped producing them in this country. One of them in 2002, and the other in 2015. Your blood levels in people's PFAS in their serum, blood serum, it's dropped by 85%, which you would use. So the real way to fix this problem is to stop producing PFAS. You know, that's my personal professional opinion. Well, Maryland, so what's the problem here in Maryland? Well, there's a town of Poolesville that had PFAS detected in their drinking water wells, which caused them to switch to new wells. And then there were some activists who claimed that it came from biosolids land application. That is a problem because the county is considering banning land application there. Our clients, like DC Water, for example, produces a community product that they sell to farmers in the county, Montgomery County. They are quite alarmed by this. They're worried that sentiment's going to spread to other counties in the state and other states as well. So they're worried about that, ban coming to us in Maryland, which would be not good for us or anybody in our profession. Another thing I should mention, that in February, MD placed a moratorium on issuing new land application permits where they're studying this problem. And one final note, which isn't on the slide, but Dr. Glass mentioned this earlier in his presentation he's doing. Pyrolysis is a process that we're looking at Dorsey to look at reducing PFAS. Pyrolysis is a high temperature process in emergent technologies, especially for biosolids. And what it does, it destroys all such emergent chemicals, organic chemicals, not just PFAS, but any kind of consumer care products, any organics, anything that's a problem from environmental health standpoint. It'll eliminate those in the solid product and give you the biochar, which is a great product, for marketing and also for carbon sequestration. So we are looking at pyrolysis and PFAS technology. A lot of cities, a lot of utilities around the country are looking at this. The only operating project in the country that uses pyrolysis right now is the Silicon Valley Clean Water plant, which is in San Francisco. They've been operating for about 6 years, I believe, using pyrolysis for PFAS. They've done a lot with it. Effort at Pennsylvania is building a pyrolysis unit, not too far away. So once it gets up and running, we'll probably go visit that. But it is a problem. This is the main problem in our business right now. You hear it all the time from biosolids professionals about PFAS. There's a lot of debate about whether we should be doing pyrolysis, high temperature pyrolysis, because they're expensive. It's very expensive. Yes, it is. It's very expensive. And other counties be it air pyrolysis at 2. These are regional things for all their facilities. So, does anybody have any questions about what I presented so far? I mean, things are going well, but we have this issue hanging over our heads.
Just seems like in the interim, the Michigan approach seems measured. When you use science, you test the soil, and if there's a large presence, you don't apply it there.
Right, we think so too. A lot of people in our profession think that interim approach that they're using policy is a good one, but some of them are not. Like in Maine, it was a bad situation there. They had to. You see a dairy farmer on TV, talking about how he's got to dump his milk. I mean, that's it. That's not going to be a good PR look, not a good look. So that's what we're up against. But I think some of these new technologies, process technology, will destroy the PFAS. It's just where does it go after that?
Water and sewer rates go up because you got to burn it.
That's right. It will be right.
It's going to.
The equipment's expensive and it's high temperature, but it does work. You look at the data, and it does take it out of the solid product. And whether it goes up in the gas stream, the research is still ongoing. There are a couple of other technologies that are in the works. Orange County, California is doing something called supercritical water oxidation. They're the first one to do that. It's a process that was developed at Duke University. That research is going to start this summer, I believe. This summer, I believe. That's also a very expensive process for this high temperature and high pressure.
So this month we heard about PFAS and the potential problems that it causes in wastewater biosolids. Next month you're going to hear about the drinking water, PFAS and all the forever chemicals in drinking water, and the problems that we're going to be trying to address later on. So we got some real emerging, what they call them, emerging contaminants problems that we're going to have to deal with over the next 3 to 4 years.
And the real solution to this is stop PFAS. Now, 3M company in Minnesota a week or two ago announced they're going to stop producing. They're one of the major manufacturers of these type of chemicals. I think for liability issues, they said we don't want to produce this stuff anymore. And hopefully DuPont or Chemours or whatever subsidiary, separate company is, hopefully they'll follow suit and stop. so that 20, 30, or 40 years down the road, we don't have this problem. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And we have a few matters to finish up. And let's see, Mr. Ford. All right, sir.
Morning again.
Come on aboard again.
So most of you know that we have fairly large contracts with Montgomery County. We run the composting operation out of for the county. It's a very large composting facility, and in addition, we run their MERF, the dual stream recycling facility that they operate over at Durwood. But what some people don't know is that we have several other smaller operations that get overshadowed by those larger operations. And so today I wanted to highlight those. All the programs I'm going to talk about, the collection programs I'm going to talk about now, are managed by a longtime employee that we have, Maurice Bodie, Mo. And I have to say Mo knows. So that, the first piece of business that I want to highlight is the Montgomery County Metro and ride-on bus stop trash collection services. So if you go to a bus stop in any of the urban areas, you'll see that there's a usual trash receptacle there in the bus stop. Well, that gets filled up with trash and somebody's got to pick it up. And on occasion, there's litter associated with that. They get overflow or stuff gets out of them. So we collect those stops, over 200 of them in Montgomery County. That's a 6-day-a-week operation. We use a small rear load trash collection vehicle, a compactor vehicle. It looks like a regular trash truck, but it's tiny. So it's a small 8-yard capacity truck. And our guys will pick up trash from the receptacles on a 6-day basis, and then they also police the area within 20 feet of the container for any litter that is there. It's been a long-term project. We work for the Montgomery County Department of Transportation on this particular contract, and not the Department of Environment, which we manage the balance of our projects with. But that's been very successful. Next slide. Another operation that we do is that we deliver and service the blue bin recycling bins for residents in Montgomery County. So if you all have recycling, you know you get a little blue bin with those pickup, and those bins have to get delivered to those residences. And then when they're break, you got to pick them up and give them a new one. And so we've been doing that since 2011 for the county. We use a 4-ton stake body truck, and we're going to expand that program this year with an additional full-time MES employee and a truck. So always nice when we can add additional employees to increase the level of service that we do for any of our customers. No exception. Next slide. This is a kind of cool program. I'll talk about what Montgomery County is doing. It's a Montgomery County uniquely Montgomery County, a program that they do where they are assisting commercial businesses in the county with food scrap collection and recycle. So we're on the back end of it. Again, I'll talk in a minute in the next slide about the county program. But what we do is collect those food scraps at commercial businesses for the county. Again, using you can see the truck there, a small rear load trash truck, specially outfitted because we don't want it to leak. Materials can get high water content. But we'll collect those at those businesses. At this point, 28 commercial partners with the county, and we are transporting currently to Bioenergy Devco, which is the relatively new anaerobic digester that's operating in the Jessup area. It's a for-profit commercial business. Again, launched last year, and they're basically producing natural gas for introduction back into the pipeline. We're now delivering, at the request of Montgomery County, that food waste to that facility, as opposed to going down to further down the road to Prince George's County at the organics composting facility that we operate there. So next slide. The program itself is unique. What Montgomery County is doing there is they promote the program. They go out and basically sell it to their commercial businesses that generate food scraps. Those are restaurants, schools, hospitality centers, anywhere where people are making food. And they provide training for the staff. They'll provide equipment to collect the material. And then we provide the collection side of it. And they'll provide that service for a short period of time, which gives the business an opportunity to learn what they need to do to successfully recycle. And then they graduate those customers and turn it over to the private sector. There are a number of, it's really interesting to see a number of small homegrown businesses that have sprouted up around these types of programs that are in the collection business. Compost Crew is one example of that, of those businesses that are out there. And so these commercial businesses graduate to the private sector, and then they hand off, and at the same time they'll add another facility on the backside. So they've been able to produce or collect about 1.6 million pounds of food scraps to date in this program. So it's a real interesting program. It's a model for other counties that are looking to try to divert food waste from their landfills. And this is a successful program that has been around for now a couple of years. And again, hopefully a model for other counties. And that's it. Any questions?
Thank you once again. Great thing that we are doing, and thank you for you and all of the people that are working so hard to do the work that we like to see. MTA. Anyway, I'll get there. MES. Yes, I was trying to get that short part of it, so I finally got to that. MES. So now I think we do not have a quorum for number 1 and number 6. So therefore, there's going to have to be another proceeding, which we will be able to, I hope, later on. It could be this afternoon or tomorrow or whatever. I'm not sure exactly we're going to do it, but we're going to have to make sure that we have a quorum with regard to those particular matters.
Yes, Judge Smokin. Ms.
yes.
Miller seems to think she might be available at 3 o'clock today for an impromptu. It would be pretty much a completely virtual meeting. If that's not the case, she did suggest she would be available tomorrow. I don't know what the rest of the board's availability is on Friday before Memorial Day weekend, but we could do it in the morning. It's just a matter of finding a time, hopefully this week or early next week.
Is there anybody who could take care of that, to have all 5 of us, or actually probably, well, it would have to be 5, before we have a vote on it? Because, we're taking a look at later on today hopefully at 3 o'clock. So that is the first one that I'm proposing.
Tomorrow morning would work better for me.
Tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning. All right.
Yes.
Ms. Wang, you don't have to worry about it, because it's a recusal, I think, on your part.
That's right.
So, you can go out and start your vacation. But how about then sometime tomorrow morning, perhaps maybe 9 o'clock? Is there anybody who could not, any of us that could not do it?
9 o'clock works well for me tomorrow.
Mr. Treasurer?
Mr. Chairman, do you know how long it's expected to go? My daughter graduates tomorrow. While I could do it at 9, I don't know how much longer or how, deep into the hour I can go before I'd have to get down to the graduation.
I would anticipate it would only take 10 or 15 minutes. There's just those two procurement items.
Okay. All right, I'm good then.
I think that's right. 15 minutes, if that, the way we think it probably is going to work out. So I don't hear anybody else that says, or anybody else on the board who, other than Ms. Wang, who cannot work. So I think we will take a look at the 9 o'clock. All right, so Pam, can you send that over down to our, well, to all of us. And let's set that as a guide. If there is not anything that we have looked at that we, can't deal with, let's go ahead and think that we will start at 9 o'clock tomorrow and take care of these items 1 and 6. Okay?
When you vote on the items tomorrow, could someone just note that I'll be recusing and abstaining from both the consideration of the matter and the vote?
Right.
Just to add that to the record.
And we will put that in as part of the matter when it comes in at 9 o'clock tomorrow. Okay? So let's hope it all works that way and that Ms. Heller will be able to be here and take care of it. And not that she necessarily is going to be at the MES. It might be just on telephone or on video or whatever it's going to be. So you don't have to actually be down to Millersville. All right. And it's called MES. Yes, I remember that. Okay. Let's see. There will be now we still have this, the H&R committee on June 15th at 3 o'clock.
Yes, and I believe Ms. Wong has a matter to discuss from the HR committee that was this morning.
All right, that's fine. So we have that on the board. And the next thing we have is the regular board meeting, which is set for Thursday, June the 22nd, 2023, 9:30 a.m. And are there any other matters before we go forward?
Judge, this
Yes,
is
ma'am.
Marion. I'm
Go right
sorry to
ahead.
be such a pain, but under the old and new business matter, I just wanted to let the board know that the HR committee met this morning to discuss the timing of the completion of the executive director's evaluation. Pam, I don't know if you have any of the slides that we had from this morning. Thank you. But the current process that we set out for completing the evaluation required that you'll see here in the sentence here that the annual evaluation should occur following the completion of the MES annual financial audit. The problem is that the financial audit is typically not issued until after July 1, when there is a turnover, or there could be a turnover of certain board members who are either rolling off or new ones coming in. So in order to allow the completion of the executive director's evaluation with full input of all board members who had evaluated the executive director before they roll off of the board, the HR committee is proposing a few changes or tweaks to the process. So the first change is that in the event that board members who evaluated the executive director in any given year will complete their terms prior to the end. I'm sorry, let me start that over. In the event that board members who evaluated the executive director in any given year and will complete their terms prior to the issuance of the MES annual financial audit, the board may complete the executive director's evaluation prior to the issuance of the MES annual financial audit. The second modification would be that the board may revise the executive director's evaluation as appropriate following the issuance of the MES annual financial audit. So I don't know whether board members have any questions or concerns about those proposed changes.
Anybody?
It makes a lot of sense because you have a new board member coming in and their first responsibility is to evaluate the ED who they've had no contact or experience with. So I think this makes eminent sense. And as long as it's subject to the final audit, I think you're fine.
Yes, I don't think we need to take a motion on this.
Yes, Judge Smokin, I'd recommend that the board do vote to adopt these changes because the previous process was approved by the board. So since you're changing that, you should vote to approve these changes.
Yeah. Okay, I think you're on the right path there. So I agree with you, and I think maybe we'll just now ask for someone who's going to make a motion on it. I'll make a motion on it. Any second?
I will second.
All right. Anyone else on the board? If not, please raise your hand, say aye.
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 All right, so this change will be approved. Okay. Anything else? Anything else on this? I think we're just about finished. Anyone else on anything? Well, anybody going to work on Memorial Day? Don't have to work on Memorial Day most of the time. You could just be out and having fun. And when you're out there, you know, go and play in your fun, and but also make sure you're safe. Don't hurt yourself. Don't hurt anybody else. And finally, remember that our Memorial Day was founded so that we could live, and we still are living. So thank God for that. And everybody have a good time, and we'll be hearing to you again. And hopefully we'll be able for the board meeting to at 9 o'clock to get together to take care of the items 1 and 6. Anything else at all? All right, well, go have fun.